Obviously, All-Star Weekend takes place in February every year, which is still a couple months away. But what if the All-Star Game started today? These are the players I think would make the cut as of November 19th, 2024. Let's get into it. Here's the criteria of how I decided which players made it and which players didn't. The players team had to be in the playoffs or the play-in as of November 19th, 2024, meaning some big names like Wemby, LaMelo, Dame, Giannis, those players did get cut because their teams didn't crack that criteria. And in the Western Conference, Chet Holmgren would be an injury reserve, and in the Eastern Conference, Paolo is an injury reserve. Chet is out until like February. Paolo has been out since like the end of October, and I think he said he's gonna try and come back before Christmas. But those two guys have been injured for an extended period of time or will be injured for an extended period of time. But let's get into it, starting with the Eastern Conference. There were plenty of teams with players that I considered. I mean, the Nets had some players I even considered in Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson, but obviously not all of these players can make it. So here's my list of Eastern Conference honorable mentions. Now, keep in mind, some of these players had a better chance of making it than others. Players like Malik Beasley were kind of shots in the dark. Players I think could be a stretch if you really tried to stretch it, whereas other players like Nikola Vucevic, who's having a revival season right now, would be closer to making it than somebody like Malik Beasley in my opinion. But nonetheless, those guys, including the other ones listed in the honorable mentions, are guys I think could have made the cut if there was room, but they didn't. Now let's get into the reserves. Since Paolo is on injury, I put Trae Young in, but he originally wasn't. He was an original honorable mention. Trae is somebody, in my opinion, that gets looked over every single season. So far, he's on par with his career average from three, shooting a little worse from the field, but he's averaging 11.6 assists per game, which is a career high. His last game against the Kings, he finished with 19 assists. He had 16 assists against the Bulls, 13 assists against the Pistons, and a couple other games, obviously, with double-digit assists. Trae Young is absolutely killing it out there right now, averaging a little less points per game at 22 right now, but nonetheless, he is still having a good season. My next reserve is Franz Wagner, and since Paolo's injury, he's averaging about 24 points per game, 6 boards and 5 assists. He looks really good. The team's playing okay. Obviously, they would love Paolo back, but Franz is playing well nonetheless. My next reserve is Tyler Hero, and he has been absolutely balling so far for the Heat this season. He's currently averaging a career high 24 points per game from the field and shooting an insane 45% from three. And let me add that 45% is on almost 10 attempts per game, which is also a career high. He's going absolutely nuclear right now. While averaging a career high in assists, Tyler Hero is absolutely breaking out right now, and I love to see it. He dropped 40 points against my Detroit Pistons, and I think he had what, like, I think he went 6 for 8 from the three or something, 6 for 7 from three in the fourth quarter. Dude went absolutely nuclear. Shout out Tyler Hero. Of course, I had to be a homer. Shout out to Cade Cunningham because that is my next reserve. Cade's currently averaging 23 points per game, a career high, 9 assists per game, a career high, and 7 rebounds per game, a career high. He's had 4 triple doubles this season, and he currently is in second all time in Detroit Pistons history in triple doubles, which obviously doesn't mean much since there's not a lot of history for triple doubles in Detroit, but he's currently third in the league in triple doubles as well, obviously behind Jokic and LeBron. Somehow LeBron is still going. We also to shout out his defense has been really good. He's averaging about a block per game, which is tied for like top 5 in the league right now among guards. Big shout out to Cade Cunningham. I had to get a homer in there, of course. And then my last 2 reserves come from the same team here. I have Darius Garland and Jarrett Allen, and their team record speaks for itself. The other night, they took their first loss to the Boston Celtics. And Garland and Jarrett Allen obviously are very pivotal pieces to why the Cavaliers are so good right now. After a pretty rocky season last season for Darius Garland, he's averaging 20 points a game this season. Last season, he was averaging 18. He's up to 7 assists a game. Last year, he was about 6. He's shooting the 3 ball at a 43% clip compared to a 37% clip last year. Darius Garland's just been much better than he was last year, which is helping to contribute to the success for the Cleveland Cavaliers so far. And when it comes to Jarrett Allen, you know exactly what you're going to get from him. A good defensive presence, somebody very reliable under the basket, is able to finish and grab boards for the team. And in my opinion, this pick was almost just throwing him in there because they were undefeated, 15-0 at one point. They're 15-1 now, 16-1 now. They just won tonight. And he's just been a centerpiece for that team. It's almost like throwing in like Al Horford or somebody into that Atlanta Hawks group back in like what, 2014 or something. That's kind of the feeling I'm getting with Jarrett Allen on this one. Although he's been amazing, we know what we get from Jarrett Allen. Shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Well, let me get into my starters for the Eastern Conference, of course. My point guard is Jalen Brunson, once again doing what he does best, just an absolute bucket getter every single night, willing his team to victory. He has taken a little bit of a hit to his points per game, but that's obviously because he's sharing the ball with the best scorer he's played with since Luka Doncic. I mean, I guess 1 year away from Luka Doncic last season. It's Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, I have him also starting in this, but sharing touches with him, and Cat's having a pretty solid season himself, maybe taking away shot attempts from Jalen Brunson. But with the addition of Cat and I mean, even Mikal Bridges, because I mean, he's shooting better, but still not great. With his new additions, he's averaging a career high in assists right now. Jalen Brunson is just one of the best guards in the Eastern Conference, and let alone in the NBA. He's got to be the starter for the East right now. My shooting guard, of course, is Donovan Mitchell, the best player on the best team in the NBA, or at least in the Eastern Conference right now. His points may be a little bit down, but he is the best player on the best team in the NBA. He's shooting his best percentage from three-pointer in his career and his second best field goal percentage in his career right now. He's absolutely killing it. Shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers once again. I don't know how many times I can say that in this video because I've given 4 All-Stars to that team. Shout out to the Cavs, man. Speaking of 4 All-Stars, I'm going to skip over Jason Tatum really quick because I've been mentioning the Cleveland Cavaliers this entire time. I have Evan Mobley also starting. Mobley is just a defensive centerpiece. Him and Jarrett Allen look so good together. The Twin Towers, they love playing together. And once again, just somebody who really is a glue piece for this Cavaliers team. If you look at like NBA redrafts of that 2021 class, they have Evan Mobley going first to the Pistons and Cade Cunningham going second to the Houston Rockets. In my opinion, I'm still taking Cade Cunningham first, but Evan Mobley is just absolutely rocking it this season. So shout out to him. But next we have Jason Tatum, of course. Jason Tatum is shooting the 3 ball at an incredible clip this season. I haven't even looked at his stats, to be honest. Just from the eye test and what I'm seeing, I believe he's probably shooting, this is all guessing, his best clip from the three-point arc this season. And I want to say he's probably shooting his most attempts from 3 this season, but let me double check that. Okay, he's currently averaging 29 points per game. He's shooting 40% from 3, which he's done twice in his career. So he's shooting his 3rd highest 3-point percentage of his career, but he's shooting 11 attempts from the 3, which is 2 more than his highest at 9.3. Absolutely insane. 40% on 11 threes per game. He's on just an absolute tear right now, looking like a top 5 or top 3 MVP candidate in the league right now. I'd say it's between Jokic, AD, probably Tatum, Shea. Those guys are all up there. Maybe Donovan Mitchell could be even fighting for a spot in there, just being the best player on the best team. But big shout out to Jason Tatum. He's looked absolutely incredible so far. I love his game. And he reminds me a lot of what Anthony Edwards is also doing, just shooting that 3 ball at an insanely high clip, which, I mean, that's the way the NBA is going right now. And if you can hit that at a 40% clip, you're going to be pretty good, and your coach is going to tell you to shoot that a lot more. And lastly, I mean, I already mentioned Karl Anthony Towns. After those first couple games, just getting used to the team, he's looked a lot better. And I think he's found his role on this team as maybe the best scorer on the Knicks, second best scorer, but he's a very reliable option and probably having one of his best seasons, if not his best season in his career currently. He's currently averaging 26.2 points per game. His highest in his career is 26.5. He's shooting, oh my gosh, he's shooting 51% from 3 on 5 attempts. 51% from 3. Dude, Karl Anthony Towns is having a season right now at 12.4 rebounds per game, which is tied for the most in his career, 3 assists. Karl Anthony Towns is having himself a season. If he can continue to do this, the Knicks are just going to keep running away. And I mean, think about if Mikal Bridges can start to get his shot back and start to look a little bit better, and the team starts to click a little bit more, they could look real good, man. The only thing about them is their bench depth, in my opinion, is a little bit sketchy. Nonetheless, shout out Karl Anthony Towns, but let's get into the Western Conference. Starting with the honorable mentions, of course. Like I said, some of these guys were closer to making it than others in this honorable mention list. Either way, a lot of these guys get some recognition they deserve here. Norman Powell having a most improved season right now. I wanted to give him some recognition for a possible all-star bid, even though I don't think he beats out any of the players above him. I still wanted to give him some shouts. But the first guy in the reserves list I want to talk about is Luka Doncic, man. I gave him this spot because he is Luka, and he hasn't been good this season, but when you look at him compared to the guys around him in the league, he still is having a pretty solid season. It's just comparing Luka to previous versions of Luka, he doesn't look as good as we are used to seeing Luka Doncic look. So with that being said, I kind of gave Luka this reserve spot because he is Luka Doncic, averaging 28, 8-8, 28, 9-9, whatever it is. Luka Doncic is still having a pretty solid season, just not comparably for himself. My next reserve is indeed Jaren Jackson Jr., averaging his most points in his career, second best three-point shooting percentage of his career. Jaren's having a solid season, man. And obviously we know what we get from him on the defensive end, being a one-time defensive player of the year and finishing top 5 in defensive player of the year multiple times. So big shout out to Jaren Jackson. Next up, I have Stephen Curry. He's not going to be a starter for us, but he of course will be a reserve. Although it's not on par for what we were used to seeing Steph Curry do, he's still having a pretty solid season comparably to other players around the league. He's on the best team in the Western Conference. I mean, you can't just not put him in here. It is Steph Curry by all means. He's playing pretty well, but nonetheless, it's still Steph Curry, still having a good season. Shout out Steph. My next one I'm very happy to have on this team as I look up some stats for him right now is Jalen Williams from the Oklahoma City Thunder, teammates of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and somebody who can play every single position on the court, one of the most valuable players in the NBA. I mean, I'm looking at his stats now, averaging a career high in points, a career high in steals. He's doubled his steals from 1.1 last year to 2.2 this year, a career high in assists at 5 per game, a career high in rebounds at 6.6 per game, shooting 37% from 3 on 5 attempts per game, which is his most in his career, his most attempts in his career, shooting 51% of the field. Nonetheless, you guys get what I'm saying. Jalen Williams is having his best season by far, filling in every single position for our Thunder team that is depleted when it comes to big guys. Isaiah Hartenstein is looking to come back very soon, but he's been out all season. They lost Chet, of course, until February. J-Dub has stepped up in just the most monumental ways for this team. There's no way I can't not get him in this All-Star game, man. He is so deserving of it. One of my favorite players to watch. Somebody I think plays with the most passion on both ends. My favorite Thunder player to watch personally, and one of my favorite players in the league to watch. Big shout out to J-Dub. My next player is De'Aaron Fox, and as much as I wanted to make him a starter, I just couldn't put him above the guys above him. But De'Aaron is having his best season by far as of right now. He's the first person to put up 60 points in a game this season. And what was that stat? He scored 109 points or something like that in like less than 24 hours, or in 24 hours, something like that, when he dropped 60 points and then 49 points back-to-back nights, like literally back-to-back nights. De'Aaron Fox is just having a great season right now. Last season, he shot 37% from 3. This season, he's shooting 36% from 3. And before that, he was shooting 32, 29, 32, 29, 37, anomaly 30. Over his entire career, he's progressively gotten better at the three-point ball to the point now where he's a very trusting shooter from behind the arc. Either way, big shout out to De'Aaron Fox. I wanted to give him some props because the guard position is very stacked in the Western Conference and he deserves his flowers 100%. Next up, I have Durant and Devin Booker. Durant is out right now for a little bit. I believe he will be coming back next week though, but I had to keep him in here still. He's only out for like 2 weeks, so I didn't consider that like an injury reserve kind of player. But either way, Kevin Durant is still just having an amazing season. He's still KD, averaging 27 points per game. Devin Booker is still Devin Booker, putting his team on his back. They're 9-6 right now without Bradley Beal, without Devin Booker, or without Kevin Durant. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, self-explanatory, both having good seasons. And the Suns look a lot better than they were last year. I believe in this team a lot more. But getting to my all-star starters to round out this video, at my guard position, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander once again, and probably a top 5 running for MVP this season. He's doing everything you expect Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to do. Averaging 28 points per game, a career high in assists right now. Shooting the 3 ball at a 35.5% clip right now. I mean, and Shai is just giving you exactly what you expect from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Nothing more to say about him. But my next guard for the Western Conference All-Stars is Anthony Edwards, somebody who's having a career season right now and just shooting that ball beyond the 3-point arc at an insane clip. Ant's currently averaging a career high at 28 points per game. He's averaging 3.8 assists, which is actually tied for a second career low. So he is shooting a lot more shots. He is kind of the offense of this team. Losing Karl-Anthony Towns, it's kind of Anthony Edwards on an island to be the primary scorer, which is why you're probably going to see his assists drop like it has so far. But he's shooting 11 threes per game. He's shooting at a 42% clip. And Anthony Edwards is having a great season, shooting the ball amazing, coming out to kill. Big shout out to Anthony Edwards. My next player is LeBron James, currently second in the league in triple doubles. At 5 triple doubles, he's 40 years old. He's averaging 23 points per game, 8 boards, 9.4 assists at 40 years old. You could have argued Kevin Durant belonged in this spot above LeBron James, but in my opinion, I got to put LeBron James here at 40 years old and what he's doing with this amount of triple doubles. The Lakers look good. His willingness to take that secondary role to Anthony Davis to try and win when it looks good. Anthony Davis looks phenomenal, and LeBron James is willing to be that secondary player next to Anthony Davis. And I think that's something that deserves to be talked about and respected about LeBron James. And speaking of Anthony Davis, that is my other forward in the Western Conference. Anthony Davis is averaging 30 points per game, and I think this is by far his best season of his career. This is the most engaged I've seen Anthony Davis on the offensive end, at least since he's gotten to Los Angeles. That's a big shout out to JJ Redick for running the entire offense through him. Like I said, shout out to LeBron James for being able to become that secondary player to Anthony Davis, but just running that offense through Anthony Davis, forcing him to shoot more 3-pointers, shooting 2.2 threes per game, which is his highest since 2021. Since then, he was shooting under 2 per game. Now he's above 2 per game, shooting them at a 41% clip, which is by far the best in his career, by far the best in his career, averaging 30 points per game, 11 rebounds per game, 1.8 blocks, 1.3 steals. Anthony Davis is probably my second in MVP voting this season. He's looking phenomenal. Lakers look good. Shout out LeBron James. But second in MVP voting, of course, behind Nikola Jokic, who is my last player here in the Western Conference. Nikola Jokic is just having some absolutely insane numbers. The Nuggets look absolutely lost without him, and when he's on that court, they look like they're one of the best offenses in the NBA, which is absolutely insane. He's averaging 30 points per game, which is by far the most he's averaged in his career. He's averaging 13.7 rebounds per game, 11.7 assists per game, which I actually didn't even realize he's averaging a triple-double. That's absolutely insane. He is by far the leader in MVP voting. If we didn't give that pity one to Joel Embiid 2 years ago, he'd be at 4 in a row, looking for 5 in a row. And you can't argue this. You can't argue giving him an MVP when he's averaging a triple-double. By far the best player in the league. And look at this, 56% from 3. 56% from 3 is crazy. It's actually funny because this is the first time I've really looked at his stats in depth. I knew what he was doing, but I haven't actually looked at what he's actually doing. 56% from 3 on 4 attempts per game, which is a career high for him. 56% from the field. The dude's having just an absolute monster season, man. I gotta do big shout out to Nikola Jokic. Be blessed that you're in an era where you can watch some of the greats like this, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul is still going, and then you get a chance to watch Nikola Jokic, who could possibly go down as the best big man of all time. What he's doing right now is absolutely incredible, and that right there, I think, is the end of it all. That is my All-Stars as of November 19th, 2024. If you have anybody you would like to add into the honorable mentions, drop them in the comments. If you want to add anybody or replace anybody in the reserves or the starting lineup, let me know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.